Hi, welcome in. If you're new, I'm Radish, and today we're going to be playing 5 demos of cozy games that aren't farming sims. I personally can never get tired of a farming sim, but I understand that some people might get burnt out, and I think it's important that I might branch out because you never know what you might find. That said, today I'm bringing you 5 Steam demos that I tried so you don't waste your time. We're going in order from the games I least recommend to the games I most recommend. First, I played Kioku, I think that's how you say it, last summer by Lung Games. This is their first game, so I want to be kind. However, I will still be honest. My critiques are in the hopes that the devs might learn for their next game, because I don't think this one is savable. Kyoku Last Summer is a cozy, story driven adventure where you play as Asti, a young girl spending her first summer on the mysterious island of Kyoku. Set in a handcrafted world blending Scandinavian and Japanese influences, players explore, build friendships, play minigames, uncover secrets, and relive the magic of early 2000s childhood summers. In the demo, you only get to play the first day, which is mostly just about learning the different minigames and meeting the characters. The minigames themselves were mostly boring. There is a marble game that I could see being fun, but it personally didn't really hook me. The other 2 games were crabbing, where you mash E and get a random crab, and the goal was to eventually get all of them, and then stealing apples from the local farm. As for the plot, I'm not really sure if there is one. There were a few locations that weren't immediately accessible during the demo, and it seems like the game is all about playing across the island with your new group of friends doing activities that most of us did back in the early 2000s. I thought the idea of this game was so fun, but the execution just wasn't there. The game didn't bring anything new or interesting to the table. All the ideas that I saw were very common and easily reproduced ideas that you could get in a million different games. Not to mention, the game was missing a lot of polish. There were typos, text falling off the screen, game ruining bugs, and more. The NPCs didn't make much sense either. At one point, I approached my classmates who were not in my immediate friend group that I had been assigned to because I saw them standing on the soccer field and I wanted to see if there was a mini game or how they would react to me as the new kid in town. They didn't even acknowledge that they were on the soccer field. One girl claimed she was on the hunt for beetles as she was standing in front of the goal. Another girl was lost in her music, and the boy just said hi. When I came back later, they were in the exact same spots, but this time they had soccer dialogue. That wouldn't be a huge issue because I wasn't technically supposed to go talk to them. I was supposed to go talk to somebody else first. Except later, when I saw them in town, they still had their soccer dialogue. That's when having the other dialogues would have made sense, but they were still using their soccer dialogue. It was weird. While playing the mini games, I ran into several glitches as well. One time I pulled up a crab that was simply a white box. Another time, a dialogue box broke, so I lost the first 6 minutes of my gameplay. And the AI didn't work very well either, which was really, really, really evident while trying to steal apples. I could see what the devs were going for with the art style. It kind of reminded me of old Harvest Moon games, but I think that there were certainly areas for improvement, especially in the town and building layouts in general. It doesn't have to do with the graphics themselves, but just how they're thought about. For example, the home of our main character, which we share with our father, is a 1 bedroom apartment with only a kid's bed. Where does our dad plan to sleep? There's also a lighthouse, but there's no way to get there. Someone would need to be able to maintain it. Even if we, as kids, couldn't get to it, it just didn't make much sense to me. Also, this isn't a knock, but look at this pet. Is this a cat? Is it a dog? It did bark at me. I was really confused. At first, I saw it and I thought it was a cat, but then it barked and now I think it's a dog. But it looks like a cat. I don't know. What do you think? I can't, in good conscience, suggest this game to anyone, to be honest. I think the devs were just in over their heads with this game. It's already in full release, but it feels like it should be an alpha. I hope that the devs keep trying and make new things because there's clearly so much love and care that went into this game. Next, I played Drawquarium from by Caleb. Drawquarium is a relaxing illustration game. You get to draw and design your own fish, plants, and even castles for an aquarium. The game has several bases that you can work off of, and as the fish age, they slowly become shiny. The game does tell you you need to feed your fish every day before 5 p.m. I didn't play long enough to see what would happen. I would assume you need to do that to be able to get them to become shiny, but I'm not sure. But if you're someone who still thinks about their Nintendogs all these years later, I might worry about playing this game and worrying about those fish. As for my experience, I think the game just isn't for me. I'm not much for designing in games. In farming sims, my farms are almost always functional before fashionable. In games like The Sims, I will design a character but never a house. I had a good time with the first one or two fish I designed, but after that, I started to feel a bit bored. The aesthetics were relaxing, but that was about it. It didn't scratch any of my scratches. That being said, I didn't run into any big glitches or any kind of big issues, so if it is something that you're interested in, then maybe give it a check. One suggestion I might make to the developer is to actually include like a blank fish model by default. What I mean is like a blank canvas. I wanted to see how much freedom we really had, so I erased the entirety of the clownfish and just colored the whole square one color. However, after I sent that fish back into the tank, I couldn't get my original clownfish base back. I ran into this issue again with the submarine base because there's no zoom button. I wanted to make it into a whale, but was struggling to get the teeth right. Because the lines were so small and the way that all of the drawing had to work, I would often get dots instead of lines. I decided to use the transform tool, knowing full well there was a chance it would delete anything that went off screen, and sure enough, it ended up cutting off the entire butt of my whale, and I couldn't get my submarine base back. This game also boasts a wallpaper mode. Maybe it's just me being technologically incompetent, but when I pushed the button, my game simply disappeared from my screen. My wallpaper didn't change. I was able to find the button that I needed to press to return to the game, thank God, because it had told me in advance how to do it. I think that it could be a fun feature because I know a lot of people really like to use animated wallpapers on their computers. However, I would think that a lot of us might not know how to implement it if following the game's instructions didn't work. The full game has yet to be released, so I hope that the developer can implement many more features to make overall experience more fun. However, knowing myself, I just don't think it's something that I'm going to pick back up again. Up next is Rock Bottom by Logan Games. Rock Bottom is an idler game. I really like idle games because I feel like they're a great way for me to relax and switch off my brain after work. I often find that the repetitive sounds act like ASMR to me. In Rock Bottom, you're a goblin mining away to obtain ores that will allow you to upgrade tools so that way you can mine better and then you can upgrade and so on and so forth. If you've played one idler, you've played them all. If you haven't played one yet, I say give it a try. They can be very soothing. I put about an hour and a half into this one and it became very meditative after a while. As you boot up the game, there is a note from the dev saying that the demo is sped up to give a sense of endgame rather than just the beginning. This game will be coming out in July as well, and as such, is still a work in progress. I did run into a few bugs, specifically with the darkness and out of bounds in the game. I found myself falling into the darkness or important resources that I had already spent a lot of energy trying to get, had spawned within it. That meant I couldn't get the materials that round. This was, of course, not a huge deal and only slightly frustrating in the moment, as there was a return to surface button that I could use if I got stuck. This game is very much a you get what you see kind of game. You look at the pictures, you look at the videos on the Steam page, and if that looks entertaining to you, then that's what you're gonna get. I had a lot of fun with it, and I'll probably be willing to spend $1 or 2 on the game, but not much more than 5. The next game on the list that I picked up was Bookbinding by Diapolis. This game is actually coming out shortly, also in July 2026. Bookbinding is a visual novel-esque game with a book cover designing minigame as you get to know the characters and the plot moves on. It is self-described as a game where you craft beautiful covers, read between the lines of your customers' lives, and decide which secrets deserve to stay hidden, including your own. It calls itself dark cozy, and I think that's very, very apt. The game itself is cozy, but the plot is a little bit dark, talking about murder and magic. I appreciate the pronoun option in the game. I feel like this has really become the norm and to be expected, but I do still want to praise it to encourage continued use of this feature. I also noticed that there was no indication of when the dialogue ended. That meant I was hesitant a couple times to click, afraid I might miss something. You start the game talking with Nathaniel, who was clearly part of your past life, and things didn't end well last time you saw each other. We learned that we showed up at his doorstep one night and asked for help after fleeing from the capital and the death of our previous employer. We learn early on that Nathaniel himself is gruff and quite a ne'er do well. He will quickly get you wound up in his shady antics. He has us rebind a book to make it look expensive so he can scam someone and overcharge them. This is where the tutorial begins. The bookbinding minigame feels mostly fine to me. I would stick with the game for the plot rather than the minigame itself. It has a lot of decorations, but personalization beyond what is already provided proves quite difficult. There's no text option, so you can't put a title on the book unless you're going to hand draw it with your mouse. They also don't have any basic shapes, so if you want anything that isn't a sticker, good luck. That being said, I did personally leave a lot of suggestions for the devs in their end of game survey. It would be a bit short notice, as the full game release is very soon, but adding things like basic shapes should hopefully prove easy. Another place I noticed could be improved was the dialogue. I am quite the avid reader, so perhaps my standards are a bit too high, but I felt that the dialogue was lacking. The characters were distinct and the story was interesting, but it felt a bit shallow. It felt a lot like telling instead of showing. Because the game's plot is what got me hooked, I am a little hesitant to share too many details. I think the surprise is what made it interesting to me. If you like slightly dark themes in a fantasy setting and are looking for a way to easily unwind with reading and some decorating after work, I think that you should give this game a shot. The demo took me about an hour to get through, so start there, and if it hooks you, then you can go buy the whole game. Lastly, I tried out Urban Jungle by KYLYK. If you liked unpacking, I think you'll really like Urban Jungle. The gameplay is similar to a roguelike and unpacking, but only for plants. You're following a young girl named Aita as she goes through different stages in her life, hopping from house to house, job to job, stage of life to stage of life. However, her love of plants never dies. The story is told through a mix of light dialogue and environmental clues. In the game, you are essentially trying to complete tasks and reach a certain level of plant points in the room or rooms. You can do this by tidying up and placing plants where they are most likely to succeed. Plants like a cactus or a spider plant love light but don't like humidity. A Chinese evergreen, on the other hand, is completely different. They hate light but love humidity. They also have preferred neighbors. Certain plants want to be by, and certain plants that they don't. That's what makes this a little bit of a puzzle game. However, I loved that you weren't punished for not following what the plants wanted. You simply didn't get as many points. It was a goal and encouragement, but the point of the game is to relax. There are several variations on each plant, so even if you place down 5 cactus, they won't all look the same. Some colorations or patterns are rarer than others. The rarer they are, the more coins that they cost to buy. You can earn coins by fulfilling different tasks or by filling up your plant progress bar. Once you reach your plant goal for the location, you have the option to continue on to the next level or continue playing. You also unlock a creative mode for that level. That means you can go back and redecorate the level with anything that you've already unlocked without the RNG of needing to draw it. This includes furniture and props. The minor critiques that I have for this game are as follows. One, there's a lot of clipping in the game. I imagine it would be hard to fix, and it's really not a big issue, but it can be a bit of an eyesore at times, especially when you go into creative mode. Secondly, I noticed that the area of effect for things like light or humidity was not always accurate, and it was hard to see where the areas were unless you were holding a plant. That makes it hard to pre plan things. I especially noticed this on the third level, where the sunlight was in a circle that could pass through the bookshelves' walls. Obviously, that's not how real life works, but if that's all I have to complain about this game, then I'd say it's pretty damn good. I'd absolutely suggest that you check this game out. I think it's a very fun and relaxing way to spend a couple hours. The story seems well done from what I saw and is probably pretty relatable to many of us who are playing. The creative mode is cute, and I think many people would really enjoy making their own plant paradise. So, what do you think? Are any of these games going on your wish list? Will you give their demos a shot? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, thank you so much for spending your time with me. See ya.